TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
Hey gang, welcome to the show. It is In the Batter's Box. My name is Scott Webb, and welcome in. I appreciate you guys being here. It is Friday. It's my favorite day. If you've been to the show before, you know why. Ideally, I make my own numbers, and when Friday comes around, you have new matchups. It's a new series, and teams play each other for the first time for the week or whatever. And usually the sports books are not quite as sharp on Friday, and then they starting to straighten things out a little bit more on Saturday, and then they're the sharpest they can be on Sunday. And then, Monday comes around and you got teams traveling again, and, Friday comes again on Monday. So you got 2 days a week that I think that are prime spots to really attack some of the numbers that you see on the sports book. So glad to have people here. It's Friday, and it's one of those favorite days. Now today, a little bit different. I wanted to, we're going to talk one football game for tonight. So I made a bet on a football game, so might as well throw it out on here. So we'll do that too. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, because today's Friday, I didn't do a show on Thursday. So the last show that I did was on Wednesday, and on Wednesday we had a guy that came on, and I felt bad. So I wanted to make sure that a couple of things are said. Number one, man, you can if you have plays you like, tell me what they are. If they actually are EV positive bets, and I didn't see it, I might join you on it. I'll bet it too. So I want to know what those plays are. So when you come on and you say, hey, in this case, the guy liked a strikeout prop for Taj Bradley. And, I started questioning him on some of the stuff, and his answers basically were just because, the number was over 5.5 plus 125 was the number. And he says, well, it's a great bet because two things. One, it's plus 125. And two, he's been over the strikeout number in 11 of his last 15 starts. So neither one of those things mean anything. So when I further questioned him about stuff, I think he got a little disappointed or got a little mad at me. And that wasn't my objective at all. So I apologize. My apology is that I don't want people to feel like that I attacked them or that I made them feel, little, because that's not really what I'm trying to do. But I am trying to go and say that was perfect. That was a perfect example of what this show is all about. This show is about how do you know what a good bet is? Because when I started questioning the guy, he didn't have an answer other than those two things. And those two things have nothing to do with whether you have a good bet or not. They might have something to do with a handicap, but he really couldn't give me a handicap really either. So in that particular case, right, the expectation on a professional bettor side is, okay, if it's 5.5 is the number, you got a projection from XYZ company, and the projection is 7. And they think, that, people pay for these projections. So, okay, it's good. You use them all the time. It's a great number. It's your number that says this is what it really should be. Right. Hey, Jerry, Jason, I'm sorry, I said Jerry. Jason Berry, fan side of Friday Baseball. Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on. So when I say that, the first thing that comes to mind is if it's 7 and the number is actually 5.5, and you're getting plus 125, then yes, you now have an EV positive bet that really works. But it doesn't work when you sit there and go, he's done it 11 out of 15 times because he hasn't faced this roster, this lineup, this team, and in this segment of time, like he couldn't tell me what the Cardinals were hitting at that time, like how many strikeouts, what was their rate of strikeout over the last 7 days or so. So when you get asked questions or you get vetted on your conversation, I'm not trying to pick on you, but at the same time, I'm trying to share with you what this channel is. This channel is really about, if you have an EV positive bet, then you bet it, and I'll jump on it with you. I'll bet right beside you. I'll take it right. My accounts are right here on the computer, and make your bet. But that wasn't that case. So I felt bad because I feel like he felt as though I attacked him, and I really wasn't trying to attack him. I was just asking him questions, but he became kind of defensive. So I apologize if that's the way it came across to anyone. Obviously I'm not trying to. I want people to communicate. So I don't want to discourage somebody going, hey, I got a bet for you. Let's talk about this, right? That's great, because that's what I do, right? I come out here and go, well, I like this because of X, Y, and Z, and because it's my numbers tell me this, and it's EV positive X percentage of this, and but that's what a professional bettor does. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to teach you guys to do is go and say, what is a good bet? Right? What makes a good bet? That's the key number one thing. If you don't have a good bet, the rest of it doesn't matter. You can handicap all you want to. That still doesn't make it so that if you made that bet 1,000 times, that bet is going to give you a profit, right? Because that's the expectation. If it doesn't give you extra value to make the money, then you don't make the bet. And that's kind of, it's like when you're playing poker, if the odds don't tell you to put your money in to pull to have a shot at the pot, then you have to fold, because otherwise you're just chasing dead money. Sure, you might hit every once in a while, just like anything else. You get lucky, but the reality is that's not how you bet. That's not what you do. That's not how you play poker. It's all math, right? So anyway, I just wanted to say that before we got started tonight. And so I'm trying to, the first game that I want to give out is kind of a play. It doesn't go until 8:00. So we got plenty of time for that. However, there are 2 spots that I think, depending on what your risk aversion is, what you feel as though you're comfortable with betting, I think there's 2 spots that you might want to look at, and that's what I wanted to talk about. So the first one, let me get my thing over here so I can talk about them in time order. The first one is at 6:45, and the second one is at 7:07. So 6:45. This is going to be the Nationals and the Angels. And what's interesting about this game, and the way I see the game, if I go back here and look, what's the line in this game right now? Oh my goodness. Well, the game all day was the Nationals minus 110, and now the Nationals are the Angels are minus 117. So that takes the value right out of the play. So that's not good. I'm trying to get the number for you. So if I go and say the Angels are now minus 117 and the Nationals are plus 107, I have the Nationals as being like a minus 105 favorite in this game. And what I liked about this game was, and what I wanted to talk about was Mitchell Parker. he's the pitcher for the Nationals. And, I thought that at a kind of even money-ish price, you could get in on the Angels, but people beat me to it. At 117, you could still bet it. I suppose it's not that big a deal because it's a smallish favorite, and this is where I'm coming up with kind of my numbers and where I'm at. It's not an EV positive play. It's actually an EV bet negative. But the reason for this, the reason for why I was going there, Mitchell Parker. So Mitchell Parker has pitched 20 games this season for the Nationals. He's pitched 106 innings. He pitched 4 innings in AAA? So he's got 110 innings pitched so far this year. It's not a dramatic amount, but I mean, it's 110. Last year, he pitched in the minor leagues in AA and AAA. He pitched 123 innings. So 110. So he pitches, let's just say he pitches 5 or 6 innings tonight. That's going to give him 116, 115 innings. So if he's at 115 and last year he threw 123, ideally, they'll bump him up, say 20 innings. So he could go 140 as being stretched out. But you got to be real careful as they start to hit this threshold. And the reason I tell you that you got to be careful is because for the season, he's been pretty good. But over his last 30 days, where is he? Parker. He's a 5.29 xFIP, 5.54 Sierra. Okay. So that means metrics-wise, he's in the worst 25% of all the baseball pitchers. So that's, you don't want to bet on guys in the worst 25%. That's not going to win you money. You want to bet against those guys. And what I'm getting at theoretically with this conversation about Mitchell Parker, he's running out of gas. 5.29 xFIP and 5.54 Sierra. Now remember what xFIP is, right? So FIP is fielding independent pitching. So when you're a pitcher on the mound and you're trying to control the opponent's offense, there's 2 ways to do it, or 2 ways it's kind of measured anyway. And maybe there's 3 ways, I guess. But the offense, they're trying to get a guy on and then hit home runs. So isolated power, that's what you want to measure offenses by for a bigger, big influence. And offensive WAR. So offensive WAR is a major component of WAR in itself, but it takes the defense out. All you're doing is looking at the offense part, right? So in this particular case, xFIP is the ability for the pitcher, walks, strikeouts, home runs. That's all it measures. Doesn't count hits, doesn't count, ground outs, doesn't count balls in play, doesn't count any of that. It's just walks, strikeouts, home runs. Those 3 things are what's called the 3 true outcomes of baseball. And if you can dominate those 3 things, you are going to dominate the opposing hitters. You're going to dominate them. So think about it. You strike a lot of people out, you don't walk anybody, and you don't give up home runs. You don't need defense. So that's why it's called fielding independent pitching, right? So you don't need fielders. The pitcher takes care of the stuff, right? So the measure of FIP, then you put the little X in front. Well, the X in front is the projection based off how he's pitching now. So this is kind of where he's trending to be. And at 5.25 or 5.29, that's not very good. So that's like 5 runs he's going to give up. That's a lot. And you're not going to win many games when you give up 5 runs. It's just, it's not going to work out for you real well. So that was number 1. Number 2, part of that xFIP number that makes it really high is his walk rate. His walk rate is 6.19 walks, 6.14 walks in 9 innings. So that means I'm going to guess, his whip rate is really high, right? Walks plus hits divided by innings pitched. You want that to be 1 or less. And his is 1.84. 1.84 is the second highest of all 30 pitchers today. That's a lot. So that's two guys getting on base every inning. So if two guys are getting on base every inning, they're going to score some runs. And he's projected to basically give up 5. So we're sitting here going, oh, that's a pretty good spot. Hey, Marty Lowe, how are you doing, man? Thanks for coming in. I appreciate you. Thanks for saying hello. When you're looking at Mitchell Parker, then you got to go, well, where's some of the good stuff? We don't really have a lot of good stuff. His ground ball rate's 29%, lowest 25% in baseball. So you want a high ground ball percent. You're not hitting home runs if they're hitting ground balls. So the idea you want is to have high ground balls and soft hit balls. Well, his hard hit rate is the highest of all the pitchers, 48.9. Almost 50% are coming off the bat, 100 miles an hour. That's not good. So he's not fooling anybody. So he's running out of gas. His last start was pretty good, though. So when you start to think about where he's at, okay, he had a good start the last time, but over his last 3 starts, his game scores are 46. Remember, average is 50. So he's below average on his pitching performance. For the season, he's a 51. So he's just a little above average. He's an average pitcher, but now he's starting to run out of steam. And he's facing the Angels. Okay, well, the Angels aren't nothing, right? I mean, they're the same team as the Nationals, record-wise, in projection and other things. They're the same team in terms of how many games they're supposed to win. But Soriano's pitching for the Angels. Different spot here. Soriano, he's an average number, 4.11 xFIP, 4.58 SIERA. So when you think, now I say SIERA all the time, and you hear me say it, but SIERA is an advanced earned run average. You got to remember that it's SIERA. So ERA is in there. So the SI part of it is more of an advanced calculation that takes batted balls. So this is nothing to do with FIP or XFIP. This is balls in play. This is all kinds of other things that happen. But it's a little more advanced than an earned run average. It's a better metric. So if you take those numbers and you look at it, Soriano has a 1-run advantage over the Nationals just in the metrics part of it. The other good thing is Soriano over the last 30 days, he's given up zero home runs. That's pretty good. You want pitchers that control, and dominate that part of the game, and he's good at that. Ground ball rate, 51%. Hard to hit home runs when they're hitting the ball on the ground all the time. And the other nice thing about Soriano was his WPA. Okay, he's not making any mistakes out there, or very many anyway. He's making more quality pitches, which is winning percent added, the good added, right? Goes all in one column. All the good pitches, all the outs, all the stuff he's getting, all go in one column. And then all the bad pitches that he makes goes in the other column. Then they add them up and they subtract the two across the bottom, and they go, well, which one's more? Well, in this case, the WPA plus, the stuff that's good, is better by a long way than the stuff that's minus. So much so that he's in the top 25% of baseball. He's not making a lot of mistakes. So that tells you that the Washington Nationals are going to have to hit his pitch, and they're going to have to try to do damage on things that they wouldn't normally be able to do. So it's a good spot here for the Angels. And then offensively, when you look at it, the Nationals offense has been a little bit better than what the Angels offense is. So what I was going to recommend is, in the way I say it's risk aversion and all that kind of stuff, is because it's not an EV positive play, but it's still a good play. And you can take, so part of when you make these bets is you got to go and say, which offense is better? Well, current structure of the offense, the Nationals are 9th and 14th in isolated power. So top 10 on one structure and, middle of the pack on the other. but the Angels are 20th in offensive WAR and 26th in isolated power. So they're not doing a lot of damage. So the best way to handle these kind of spots is the Nationals say have a better offense. Well, you don't want to take your offense and go head to head with an offense that's better than yours in 9 innings. Switch it to 5 innings where you have the better pitcher and you limit how often that's going to come up. So the advantage play is to take the Angels on the money line in the first 5 innings with Soriano over Parker. Now, I had all that worked up to give you that play, and then the odds changed right before the show. So it takes a little bit of steam out of the play because where is it now? So if I do this and I go first half now and I look at it in the first half, instead of it being, plus 105, plus 110, or plus 100, well, they haven't changed it a whole lot. Circa is Soriano minus 113. Superbook is still Nationals minus 115. So depending upon what your book is, you still might be able to get this at a decent price. So shop your book, see what you can come up with. Somebody let me know what their books are. The lines that I can see right now are showing me. Some of them are showing me 115, 110 for Washington, and the others are showing me 113, 115 for the Angels. But I think the Angels are the right side. But I would only play them in the first 5 innings. I wouldn't play them. I wouldn't play them in the full game here because now you got to take your offense and bat it around. Now that was kind of talking point game number 1. Talking point game number 2 is a very similar spot here, but this one when I made my number for the game, it surprised me. So the first thing is, this is the Oakland A's and the Toronto Blue Jays. This is Mitch Spence for the Oakland A's, and he's facing the Toronto Blue Jays with Jose Barrios. Now Barrios is having like his worst season since he was a rookie. So he's not doing very well. He's got some wins under his credit, but his metrics and his performance doesn't really equate to the number of wins that he has. As a matter of fact, he should be a losing pitcher, not a winning pitcher. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 that you have to understand is when I make my numbers, I use base runs as an adjustment. So I take Fangraphs projected standings, and I take Baseball Prospectus projected standings, and then see where and average those 2 numbers out for a team, and then I use base runs to adjust them because that then gives me the actual strength of the team. So if you haven't been around or haven't seen the show, base runs. The reason I use base runs is because base runs is a mechanism that compensates for sequencing of events. So let's say seven things happen in an inning for 2 different teams. So for the first team, you have a walk, a walk, a walk. So there's 3 walks, 3 events. A home run, so that's 4 events. Then you have 3 strikeouts, right? So that team scores 4 runs. So that sequence of events, they got 4 runs. It's pretty good, right? So in the next sequencing of events, the guy hits a home run, first batter, home run, walk, 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 strikeout, strikeout, strikeout. Same exact 7 things. The same exact 7 things, they only scored 1 run. So one team is getting an advantage of sequencing events. The other team has a disadvantage of sequencing of events. And base runs takes that and adjusts the number of wins a team has based off of either their luck or unluck when it comes to those sequencing of events. Some teams are good at creating their own sequencing of events, I just got to tell you. But other teams have been unlucky. So, for example, the Cleveland Guardians, The Cleveland Guardians have won 11 games based on sequencing of events that no other team has. They're overrated by a ton. So when I make my numbers and they come in right now, I'm betting against Cleveland all the time, because they don't merit the lines that they're being given. So you find opportunities like that. Well, one of those teams is the Toronto Blue Jays. The Toronto Blue Jays, if I bring my numbers over here, here we go. So the Toronto Blue Jays, you take Fangraphs 75 and Baseball Perspective, 76.2 kind of comes under, let's say 76 wins, 75 point whatever, so round up to 76 wins. Well, Base Run says they've won 4.5 more games than they should have. So now they're at 70.8. So 71 wins is where they're at. Well, 71 wins is the Nationals are 72 wins. The Oakland A's are at 69 wins and 67 wins, so averaging together 68. They are adding 5 because of sequencing of events to the negative. So they should be at 73 wins. So if they're at 73 wins and the Blue Jays are at 71, the A's are actually power-wise a better team. But then you got to say, okay, well, now I got to mess up these pitchers and put them in there. The whole thing I said was, you got to remember, Barrios has a name because he was a twin and he was really good, and he's having his worst season since his rookie season. So Barrios isn't worth very much as a pitcher. And Spence for the A's has made 14 starts. In those 14 starts, he's 7-7. That's pretty good for a team that's, below 500. And he actually grades higher than Barrios. So now you have the Oakland A's who power rank better, and theoretically they have a better pitcher. So then the number comes down and it comes out and it goes, the A's should be small favorites. They're not small favorites on the line. The line is Oakland or Toronto. Toronto minus 145 at Circa, 139 Superbook, 143 South Point, 150 at Bookmaker. So they're 145-ish, right? So then that means you can get the Oakland A's at 135. Plus 135. That's value, man. Take it to the bank. That's an EV positive bet. That's what a good bet looks like. That's a good bet. Now, you get into this game a little bit, then you have to go and say, hey, we got to throw up a couple of flags here. The flags are offensively, the Oakland A's right now, they're not leading the league in hitting like they were 2-3 weeks ago. They're 25th out of 30 teams, so that's not good. And they're 2.8 runs a game, and that's terrible. So you got to kind of calculate that and go, all right, so maybe it's a good bet to make, but at the same time that it's a good bet to make, maybe I take my unit structure and tear it down just a little bit. I want to bet EV positive plays, and this is one of them. But you also want it to sort of match up to where the team is. Like, one of the things I'm always looking for is, how do I capitalize on bad pitchers, and how do I maximize teams that are hitting the hell out of the baseball? Well, the number one thing you do is you attack teams that don't hit baseballs, right? And Oakland's at 25 on offensive WAR, 25 isolated power. They're 17% worse than an average pit team right now. That's not to say Toronto's killing it. Toronto has one guy. You don't mess with Guerrero Jr. and you're going to be okay. But Guerrero Jr. is batting like 500. He's got 10 home runs in his last, 20 games, something like that. So that's where the game kind of gets a little confusing, in a sense that Mitch Spence is also, pull him up over here. He's also not like the talented, greatest pitcher in the world. So I told you Barrios isn't that good. Barrios is 5.48, 5.57. In fact, Parker was 5.29, 5.54. Barrios is a little worse than that. He's the worst pitcher on the board in terms of metrics, the worst one of all of them. And Spence, he's a 4.85, 5.21. He fits in that top 25% of worst pitchers too, but not as bad. I don't know. I always have a phrase, and hopefully this doesn't offend people, but the phrase is, when you're trying to be something good and you come in, you're really good at being bad, like you're the tallest midget, right? That's kind of where Spence is right now. Spence is like, oh, yeah, I'm in the worst 25%, but I'm the best top worst 25%. Okay, you're still terrible. So the point being is that yes, this is an EV positive play, but it's going to take a little bit of risk aversion in your head to sit there and go, I'm okay. My bankroll can substantiate some of this, and the value is too good. I'm not going to pass it up. It's a plus play. It's plus 135. I'll take it and I'll run with it. So you can do that. I think, I will never argue with anybody that wants to go and bet EV positive plays. I to my head sometimes sit here and go, these guys that make some of these really EV positive bets that are so far outrageously crazy because their percentage of winning is very low, but it's EV positive, right? That they have to have that 1 out of 200 hit to make it work, but they're willing to go take that shot because they're going to make it 200 times. And when that one hits, they're going to pay for all those 200. So it depends on how you bet and what your betting structure looks like and how your risk management is in your bankroll and your profile. So anyway, I throw that out there because those two bets, the Angels and the A's, the Angels not as much as they were before the show started. But, it is what it is, right? It kind of happens that way. Now, football play, I bet today, I bet the Atlanta Falcons minus 2.5. I think if I look back on this game and I look at this right now, Atlanta, well, it's 2.5 or 3 now. So it depends on where you're getting it at or what you're doing. There's still some 2.5s available and 3. And one of the things when you're betting these games and you're betting, I'm trying to pull up my website that I put some of this information on. When you're betting preseason football games, there's a couple of things you have to keep in mind, and the number one thing, the number one thing that you have to do. And let me go to all pages. The number one thing you have to do is you got to know who's playing. And if you know who's playing, what does it look like in terms of matchups? So football is a game of matchups, especially in preseason, because you've got first stringers, you got second stringers, third stringers, and then you got fourth, fifth, and sixth string team guys. And I'm sliding this down so I can get to where I want to go. Okay, so Atlanta is they're not playing Kirk Cousins today. So, okay, Atlanta's not playing Kirk Cousins. So who's going to play? Well, Michael Penix is going to play a lot of this game. And then you're going to see Tyler Heineke. Now, Tyler Heineke can play, right? He's an NFL quarterback that's actually started a lot of games, even started playoff games. So that's an edge to have a guy like that that's going to play. Especially like in the second half and so forth and down the line. So when you think about that, then you think about, okay, well, who are they playing? Well, they're playing Miami. And when you go look at who does Miami have, well, Tagliabue is not playing. So they're gonna have Mike White as the quarterback, and then Skylar Thompson as the quarterback. Well, Skylar Thompson's filled in the NFL and looked terrible, and Mike White has been hit or miss. So you are going to be kind of dependent a little bit about how Michael Penix plays, but you got an advantage with Atlanta when Tyler Heineke plays. The other edge that you have for Atlanta, and I didn't write down all the players and all this stuff, but they're deep in running back. and they're gonna have a lot of ability to run the football tonight. So I think you're going to see some edge for Atlanta there. And I also think that you're going to want to see, or the head coach is going to want to see, sort of a change in mentality and, all the kind of stuff that they try to do. And, this is his second time as a head coach, Raheem Morris. He's 5-7 in these type of games. And I think the guy, Mike McDonald, he's 3-3 for Miami. So there's not really an edge in head coach, but you do want to figure out kind of the motivations behind him. And I think that in the Atlanta structure, they want to know what they got with Michael Penix. They want to give him a lot of opportunity. He's going to play. He's going to be given, he's going to be able to throw. He's going to run. And in a lot of ways, when you have a running quarterback in these kind of spots, and you're a lot better off than you're not, because when you have second string, third string, fourth string replacement guys on the offensive line, they make mistakes and they miss blocks. So your quarterback has to run for his life half the time and make plays. And I think Michael Penix is good playmaker guy. And we've seen Tyler Heineke do it. So I'm good. So I think there's an edge there with Atlanta. So I bet Atlanta to cover the game. So I just wanted to throw that out there if you guys are into that. But so the other thing I wanted to talk about with these games is, man, these numbers are moving like crazy. So why do they do that? So if you're not familiar with betting, the numbers don't normally move they won't move like this in the NFL. And what I'm talking about is a game like, let's go with like a game. Let's go to say tomorrow's games. There's a game tomorrow that when you open up a number and say the number is, where is it? There we go. So you've got, I wanted to go bet on Cleveland tomorrow. Doesn't mean I'm not going to bet them, but I'm not going to bet them chasing steam, right? So the line opened at 2.5. I think it stayed 2.5 to 3 most of the week. I was going to bet them today. Well, it's already 5.5, 6. So it moved 3 points, 2.5, 3 points. They don't do that in regular season. The numbers don't move. They might creep along and they might get to a 1 or 2 or something like that way down the line, or an injury happens and then they might change the number. But some of the problem that you run into with these games is you have betting syndicates out there that release plays, and betting syndicates change these numbers like that. That it just snap, boom, changes. And it happens in regular season games too. But it changes these games dynamically because the limits of the amount of money you're allowed to bet influences the bets, right? So if you can only bet, say, $2,000 on these games, and there's now 300 to say 1,000 people that just went and bet the same side all at one time, at one place or at a couple places, it's going to dynamically change. And then everybody else goes, oh, somebody just made a release, blah, 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 and they change all their numbers real fast. And then then it becomes a matter of, all right, this place released this number at the 2.5, and now it's 5.5 because everybody went and bet it. So that's the sports book going and saying, I have to manage my risk. I don't want any more money on that bet. So anyway, I'm trying to entice the other side. So you as a bettor have to go and say, okay, well, either A, I agree with the betting syndicate. The betting syndicates lose. They don't win them all. They lose. And two, did the adjustment go too far to the point in which now it's beyond what really has the expectation of having a good bet, and it's a good bet on the other side. So you have to kind of determine some of that stuff, and a little bit of that has to do with these key numbers. So, for example, Cleveland's was 2.5. Now it's 5.5 at most places. So I think what probably happened, it hit 6 and then it got bought back down. So the buyback number is 6. Now, if it hits 6 and it went through the 6 to the 6.5, then you can sit there and go, okay, maybe they're going to get to a point where it's a 7 points is the buyback number. What you're trying to find and where you're trying to go with this is what's my value spot, because it's not going to stay there long. Once it hits a certain number, people are going to go back in. They're going to go, well, this is the number it should be. I'm going to go get this number back, right? So people think that they're going to win by 4 or 5 points, and not necessarily win by a touchdown. So they're willing to say, hey, it's 2.5. Okay, it hit 3. It's 3.5. 3. It hit 4. It's 4.5. They're not having a problem with that till it got to 6. When it got to 6, here comes the buyback. So that's what you're looking for, right? And as you're a bettor, you're looking for the buyback spot or how did it cross the key numbers. So in football, right, you have a key number of 3, 4, 6 is kind of a key number, but 7, right? 3, 4, 7, 6 is in there. So once a 2.5 crosses 3 and it doesn't stop and hits 3.5, you got to say, did it hit 4? Oh, it hit 4. Shit, it went through 4.5. If it hits through 4.5 and you still have the opportunity to bet it at 4.5, bet it. Bet it at 4.5 because they're telling you they're going to win by at least 6. So as you're moving that forward, once it hits 6 and it buys back, that's when you have to throw up the pause flag and you have to go, holy crap, I don't know if this is the way I want to do this. I don't want to go 6, right? Because think about it. 5's not a key number. So if there's a number of 5, most often people are going to tell you that's a dead number. And a sports book will release that number with the idea going, we don't know whether to make it 6. We don't know whether to make it 4. Let's let the bettors tell us what number to make it. And when we take action on it, we'll move it based on the number. So that's why they call it a dead number, because they don't know where to go with it. So think about it this way. If you have to cover 5 points, the games don't end on 5. They end up on 7, or they end up on 6, or they end up on 4. So if it's 5 or even 4.5, the reality is you got to cover a touchdown. So think of it like you're getting those numbers, right? So if you're betting and you're doing it that way, you just have to be real careful on how objectively you're trying to make these numbers happen. So anyway, I just kind of want to hit you with a little bit of football. We got a lot of football tomorrow. We'll kind of stab things around a little bit and kind of look at some opportunities for tomorrow. But let's get back into baseball because that's probably why most of you guys are here. So baseball, let me flip this back to today's games. There we go. All right, so we talked about the Angels and we talked about the A's. And I wanted to talk about the St. Louis Cardinals and Kansas City Royals game. They've played a couple times already, and the Royals dominated that series. They've won 2 games, and now these will be the next 2 games in this rivalry-type series. And you got 2 pitchers pitching today in Lorenzen and Michaelis that are just terrible pitchers. Michaelis, he's having a subpar year. And what happens with these guys is they don't have what I call an out pitch. So if you get 2 strikes on a batter and you can't throw a ball past them, or you can't throw a nasty slider that moves, or you don't have a pitch that gets them out, then you got to continually keep throwing the ball up there and hope they hit it to a batter or a fielder. But what if they keep fouling the ball off because you put good pitches out there and they can hit it? And that's what happens to these guys. When they start to lose their stuff and they don't have as dominant, pitching plus stuff, then they get into a spot where they don't have an out pitch. They don't have anywhere to go. So because they don't have anywhere to go, they need the batter to help them. And that's so the pitcher is trying to think ahead to the degree in which he's trying to throw the ball where the batter is going to make an out, right? So these two pitchers are those kind of pitchers. Let me flip to my numbers so I can give you what I'm talking about. You have Michaelis, 4.61, 4.92, 5.75. Those are his metrics, right? So 4.61 XFIP, 4.92 Sierra, 5.75 FIP. All in the worst 25% of baseball. Same thing for Lorenzen, 5.23, 4.95, 5.49. So both of them in the top 25% worst of pitchers in baseball. I wanted to look at this number real quick because I thought this number changed. And St. Louis, there we go. So yeah, it's 9. So there's one place looks like Heritage has it at 8.5. It's a 9. I'm going to tell you to play over 9. I don't, and I'm going to caveat this with I'm a way better under better than I am over better. But in this particular spot, I think you have two pitchers that are guys that don't get outs. They have a problem with strikeouts. So if I go back and I look, Michaelis' strikeout rate 4.64. So in the day and age where if you want to be in the top 25% of strikeouts, you need to hit 10. He's at 4.64. He's in the worst 25% of all of baseball. He's not striking guys out. And his other problem is, or Lorenzen's problem is, he gets an average number of strikeouts, but he's got a 5.51 walk rate. So Lorenzen's going to put guys on. Michaelis may not put them on because they're walking, but he gives up hits. His batting average against is 337. That's terrible. I mean, the batting average for the league is 240 right now, and he's 337. Oh my God, that's 100 points higher. But Lorenzen ain't any better. He's 313. Both of them get hit. And if you look at it, you got to go and say, I bet they make a lot of mistakes. Well, Michaelis is a minus 0.56, and Lorenzen's a minus 0.45. That's not very good at all. They're making more mistakes than they do positive pitches. So you're getting guys on base, and these guys are making mistakes, both of them. It's not one versus the other. Both of them are adding gas to the fire. So then you got to go and say, all right, these guys aren't very good. They don't control the opponent's offense very well. So in that particular case, we look at it and go, Miles Michaelis is a SOPS plus. So that's your on-base percentage plus slugging percentage, and it's 165. That means he's 65% worse than an average pitcher. He's not controlling nothing. And 123 for Lorenzen, 23% worse. So both of these guys are getting hit. And then you go and you look at it from offensive standpoint, and you go, Kansas City, where are they? They're there. Kansas City scoring 5.8 runs a game. Remember we said 2 point something from the Oakland A's wasn't very good. 5.8 is pretty good. You're scoring 6 runs a game. That's pretty good. You're going to win some games that way. And they're doing well. And St. Louis is 3.5. So they're a little bit lower, but can they take advantage? Sure. And it's kind of a rivalry spot where they might step in and go, hey, I gotta take some of these at bats a little more serious and really try to hit Lorenzen. So Lorenzen's not out there going to be, this dynamic pitcher. He might get a couple more strikeouts than what Michaelis does, but both of them are going to rely on their offense to get themselves out or hit it towards hitters. So I think that's crazy. It says, hey, Scott, we won with KC Wednesday night, 8-4. Yes, we did. That's good. Of course, Matt, I think I told you that was the game that you shouldn't be betting the minus 1.5, and you could have probably would have won more money. So I apologize that I didn't help you with that one, but sometimes that's the way things go with the way I tell you stuff, and then don't do it to tell you to hurt your money. Try to help you to win money. But yes, Wednesday was great with Kansas City. That is true, and I expect both teams to score tonight. So I'm saying over 9.5. My actual score predictor. Oh, I gotta pull it up. I closed that file earlier, so let's see. Score predictor update, and Kansas City and St. Louis. There you go. I got them scoring 11 runs. I got this game being a 6-5 game, 6-5. St. Louis with 6 and Kansas City with 5 is what the score predictor says. Now, I don't always go by the score predictor, but and the way the score predictor that I wrote the program for it works based off of hits allowed by a pitcher. So if you go and divide out how many runs are scored and then how many hits are made, it generally comes out to a little over 2. It takes a little over 2 hits to score 1 run. So things are changing in that dynamic. So this has kind of been a little different year for that. But that's the way the program is written. The program is written then to say, all right, this guy's going to pitch how many innings? How many hits is he going to give up? And based on how many hits is he going to give up, how the other team does versus their getting their hits. And it says, okay, this is how many the starting pitcher is going to give up. And then it says, well, how many innings does the starting pitcher pitch? Does he pitch 4 innings? Does he pitch 4.5? Does he pitch 5? Does he pitch 5.5? Does he pitch 6? So it calculates that. And then it goes and says, oh, let's get the bullpen in here. And the bullpen does this. And the bullpen gives up X number of hits and blah, 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 blah. So then it gives me a number that basically says, based off of these 2 teams and these 2 pitchers and the bullpens for these pitchers, this is how many runs you should expect. And the reason I like it is because it's also divided out into a first 5. I can get a first 5 total number for these games so that it helps me look at whether I want to bet things on first 5 or whether I want to bet things full game. So anyway, that's what I call my score predictor and a little bit of how it works. It doesn't go and say, well, this guy gave up this many runs. It doesn't have that in there at all. It doesn't have strikeouts in there. It doesn't have walks in there. It doesn't have any of that stuff. Well, it shouldn't say it has walks. It has guys on base, right? I want to know how many guys are on base. So it's got hits and walks in there. But it's and home runs because, if you're giving up a lot of home runs, you're going to give up more runs than the other guys. So there's some other things that influence it. But, strikeouts and all that kind of stuff, balls in play, none of that stuff's in there. So it's just really about, guys on base, how many hits, that kind of stuff to generate runs and generate opportunities for runs. And then it gives me a score. All right. So we talked about that game, St. Louis, Kansas City at over 9, I think is a good play. And then there's 2 other ones. And they're both later games tonight. So the first one is this is a game where the Mets are playing Seattle. So I like Seattle. I like the number. I think the number I wrote down was 127. I don't know if that's still the same number. Seattle, it's 128. So you can get a Circus 128. You can get a Superbook 123. So maybe it's 125. Maybe it's 130 where you're at. My number on the game, go back over here, Seattle. My number is 142. So if you're at 130 or less, you're a good EV. So 127, you're at 4.9% EV positive bet. So that's what a good bet looks like, right? So that's no handicapping, no nothing. That's just saying, look, there's value in this number. I want to think about betting this game. So that's kind of how this works. You start with that. So then you go and you look at it and say, well, why would I want to bet it? Well, the number one thing in this spot is you got Miller on the mound for Seattle. Some of these guys have some kind of weird thing where they're really good at home or away. And most of the time it's a home guy. I have more trust in the home guy thing. And Miller's that. So SOPS plus for Miller at home is 54. 54. That means he's 46% better than an average pitcher at controlling the opponent's offense. Now, in this particular case, it's just when he pitches at home. When he's on the road, he's a 104, which means he's slightly worse than average. So he's got this weird thing where he pitches great in Seattle. So when I look at these things, sometimes I have what I call a situational report. So I see it here for over his last 28 days, he's a 69. So he's really good. 31% better than average pitcher. All right. At home, he's a 54. Well, that's good. And at night, he's a 64. So if I wanted to pick my spot to bet on him, I would want to bet when he's at home and at night. And now that he's pitching pretty well, it all matches up. So situationally, it's good. For Quintana, in his last 28 days, he's a 116 SOPS plus. So he's 16% worse than an average pitcher at controlling the opponent's offense. On the road, he's a 103. And at night, he's a 116. So if I wanted to pick a spot to bet him, I would want to pick he's actually 103 is better than his 109 at home, but his 116 at night is not as good as his 97 during the day. So I would want to bet him on the road during the day as opposed to on the road during the night. So I like the idea that now Miller fits that spot. Now he's made 22 starts, Miller. He's won 13 of those 22. So that's not bad. It's not like he's winning 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4. But he's getting there, right? I mean, he's pitching pretty well. The other kind of thing that was interesting in this particular matchup, if I go back over there, Miller doesn't give up home runs. And how do the Mets win? They hit home runs. So he's a 0.38. So that means he's given up very few home runs in the last. I can tell you. He has given up 1 home run in the last 23 innings, almost 24 innings. In the last 4 games, only 1 home run. In fact, he's only walked 1 guy in that same amount of time. So he's not going to walk anybody, and he's not going to put anybody on base. So the Mets are going to have to earn their way, and they're going to have to hit. So it's going to have to happen. And when you look at the other side, Quintana, 12 walks with 5 home runs. He puts guys on base and then gives up homers. So I like the matchup there, Miller versus Quintana. Quintana is an average pitcher, and Miller's a little bit better than average. He doesn't strike out guys nearly as enough as maybe he should based on the stuff that he has. But whip rate, less than 1 guy per inning. So they're going to have to really work to get there, and he doesn't make mistakes. In fact, he's a .88 today, WPA, which is the best of all the pitchers. So he's out there not making any mistakes. So again, another spot that really means that the Mets are going to have to work to score. So then you look at it on offense, and Seattle's offense is kind of a weird thing. They're 24th in offensive WAR. That's not a good thing to bet on. Whereas the Mets are 11th. The Mets are 12th or 22nd in isolated power. So remember, we said you got to work, right? Well, if you're not hitting home runs, you got to work to score runs against Miller. They're not hitting home runs at 22. And on the other side of that, isolated power for Seattle, they're 15th. So even though offensive WAR-wise, they're not getting a bunch of base hits, when they do get the opportunity to hit power, they're getting the extra bases. And we already know that Quintana is worse than an average pitcher at holding opponents to those things. So the matchup makes sense. The line is not high enough, and you have value here. So then you got to go and say, let's make this happen. And I'm not opposed to, I don't have to, my offense isn't at a dramatic disadvantage. I'm at home. I have the better pitcher, and I have the better bullpen. So let's let that run. So I'm going to take them full game and see how this goes. So we're talking Seattle minus 130 tonight against the Mets. And then the last play that I have, and then I'm going to make one other comment, and then we'll wrap it up. So San Francisco played this goofy game yesterday I was on them yesterday. They won and covered, so I'm fine. There was no issues. But they gave up a 3-run home run with 2 outs and 2 strikes to the Washington Nationals to make this game go into extra innings. That wasn't what was upsetting about the game. Very rarely do offenses or teams get to a point where you see it. We as bettors, one of the first things we look at is runners in scoring position and how did our team do, right? Because we want to know how many opportunities do we have to score that we didn't, and maybe we look at that and go, well, the handicap was good because the opportunities were good, and that's what you want. You can only handicap to the opportunities. What the team does and how they execute within those opportunities is not always in your control, and it's certainly not always in the control of the team either. But they had 22 runners in scoring position yesterday. That's a big number. I don't recall probably the last time that I saw 22 runners in scoring position for any team. And for a long time they were at, I think it was like in the 3rd inning, they had 10 or 11. They were 1 for 10 or 1 for 11. They could have blown that game open way a long time ago, but they just didn't. They just couldn't hit when they got guys on base. Anyway, they ended up winning the game. But tonight they faced the Detroit Tigers, and Robbie Ray's on the mound. And Robbie Ray's hit or miss. If he's on, then Robbie Ray's like a Cy Young pitcher. He can strike out 10 or 12 guys. He walks kind of 1 or maybe none, and he's hard to hit. Maybe he gives up 2 or 3 hits. When he's on, he's really good. And the Tigers have been listed all day. I don't know if they're listed with a pitcher now. It doesn't really matter. They're going to have a bullpen guy, and then Kenta Maeda is going to pitch, and then more bullpen guys. So Kenta Maeda is kind of the bulk guy. He's going to throw 3-4 innings, and then they're going to bullpen piece it together. That's what they do. That's kind of what they've done. This is not a good spot for that. You've got a team. You've got a team in San Francisco. They're 5th in offense. They're scoring 5.7 runs a game. They're 3rd in isolated power. And listen, they've got 5 guys. Fitzgerald, Conforto, Chapman, and Kannon, all over 2 WAR, and Chapman's at 4.8, so it's almost at 5, and Conforto and Fitzgerald are at 6. They got guys hitting, and when you look at what's going on the other side, Detroit is struggling. They are 22nd on offense, 20th in isolated power. They're being led by Meadows, who just got called up not too long ago. And McKinstry. Well, McKinstry's no good. He's a guy. No, I shouldn't say he's no good. When these guys are in this spot, everybody's good. Everybody has their time. McKinstry, he probably has been on this list of guys that have hit one other time all season. But my point is he's a flash in the pan and he's going to go away. Meadows, flash in the pan, he's going to go away. But Fitzgerald, Conforto, Chapman, those guys are consistent guys. They hit. They're going to stay up there. They're hitting when they're hot. You ride them. And that's what I'm trying to tell you tonight. It's a -200. Scott, why are you telling me to pay -200? I'm not. Play them on the run line. If you look at the -1.5 on the run line, it was +110. I'm not sure if it's still that way today, or not today, but right this minute. But you go and you flip this over. Where's my spreads? There we go. And if I look at it, -1.5 is still +110. They're listed Brisky now as the starter. So Brisky's he's a bullpen guy. He's going to go 1 or 2 innings. You might even have another bullpen guy, and then Kenta Maeda is going to pitch, and then more bullpen guys. And trust me, Detroit's bullpen, they're not the greatest bullpen in the world. And I'll take my chances with a hot offense in San Francisco going up against a cold offense and a good pitcher in Robbie Ray. And I think that's where the dynamic of the 1.5 comes in. And when I flip this over to my score predictor, it's not going to work out quite right because the score predictor can't predict because I didn't have a pitcher for the Tigers. But I think that if it's possible that the San Francisco 49ers, man, I got football in the brain. If the Giants can get to, let's just say the Giants can get to 4 runs or 5 runs, I think they can cover the 1.5. Because I think that they're going to have a hard time, especially if Robbie Way's on, and I'm going to expect him to be on. But if I get there, I think what you're going to see is Robbie Ray be dominant. I think you're going to see Detroit struggle. They're not good against left-handed pitchers, and I think that you're going to see a gap where you can fill it in where they're going to win by 2, 3, 4 runs tonight out in San Francisco. Now I want to make one last comment and then we'll wrap it up tonight. So I bet a game earlier today, and I'm going to start doing this more and more. I bet on the Minnesota Twins. The bet was actually I think it was minus 160. I think was the number, and I bet it. I bet minus 160. So I'm going to start taking more of those swings, meaning that this time of year, you're going to run into these spots where, look, the Minnesota Twins are better than the Cleveland Guardians. And the spot was a rookie pitcher that's only pitched twice going against a team and it's in a playoff hunt, and they're trying to chase down the Guardians. And they had Bailey Ober on the mound, and my number in the game, if I can get up to where it's at, here you go. My number in the game was Minnesota minus 202. Okay, 202. So if I see 202 and the number at 160, there's still value there, and the value was 7%. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is don't be surprised to start hearing me do 2 things. One, guys that are actually in the group listening to me on the show, you're going to start seeing plays because I've been kind of hesitant to put some of these out there that, are minus 160s or minus 150s or whatever. I'm going to be putting them out there. And then 2, guys on this channel, when we start sharing this kind of stuff, we're going to start be looking at some of the bigger favorites, because 2 things are going to happen. One, and you're going to find that there's still value in them. And 2, some of these spots are very, very good. Like the Minnesota spot earlier today it's a good spot. So I wanted to throw that as a heads up. They're not all going to be, plus 105, minus 105, minus 115, minus 130, which I've really kept that narrow focus on. These are going to start getting to be a little wider. And that's the time of year we're in, because these spreads are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as we go. I'm not going to give you a minus 200, and I'm certainly not going to go and tell you, hey, this game's minus 200. I like it, so let's flip it over to minus 1.5. Remember, we've talked about that. I don't want to say ad nauseum because that's not true, but we've talked about that a lot. And the reality is, remember that the money line and that run line are not correlated. They don't go together. They're not hand in hand. They don't match up. That's not what that's for. The money line is just to win the game. The run line is correlated to the total, not to the money line. So if you've got a total, where's that game at? We just talked about. If you've got a total of default, there we go. So if we got a total of 7.5 in that game that we talked about with San Francisco just a minute ago, right? And I said, if I think that if you can get 4 to 5 runs from San Francisco, you're going to cover the 1.5. So think about it. That means that Robbie Ray's going to pitch well. The other team is only going to score 2. And you're going to win 4-2 or 5-2. It's correlated to the run line, to the total, not to the money line, right? So when you're making those bets and you're thinking about how that works, don't try to flip that number, because that's not what it's for. People say that all the time, and they do it all the time. And guys, that's not the right way. The right way is to go and say, I think the Giants are going to win this game by margin. And if they're going to win the game by margin, and you can show like on your score predictors, or you can show however, I just talked about the offense, and I thought that the pitcher for Robbie Ray was going to hold him to, say 2 runs. Then the reality becomes is that almost automatically puts you looking at the run line, because if the other team scores 2 runs, you need 4 to cover, and can you get 4 off the bullpen and Kenta Maeda, and your offense is 5th in the Major League Baseball right now? That's where I think that you got, and this is a plus money play. I think that's where you go and say, yeah, I got value there, right? And that's how that gets put together. It didn't get put together by me going, hey, Robbie Ray's minus 200. Let's see what it is on the run line, because that's not how it works. So anyway, I wanted to make sure that we said that. If you were here with me at the beginning, we got almost 100 people here now. If you were here with me at the beginning, I made an apology to the guy that I think I called out. That I didn't want him to be upset, and I don't want anybody else to be upset. If you got plays, put them out here. I'd love to see them. If you have EV situations you want to talk about, we can do that. But when I don't want to come across as I'm attacking anyone, because I'm not. But I want this channel to all be about teaching the understanding of what a good bet is. And if you can't tell me, other than he had 11 out of 15 times he struck out more than 5.5, and it was plus 125. None of that means anything. It doesn't create a valid opportunity to where you can go and say, well, my expected winning percentage is X, and this is what the sports book is offering me, and because my winning percentage of X is better than what the sports book is offering me, I should make that bet. If you can't do that, then you haven't figured out what a good bet is yet. That's what it is. A good bet is when you have expected value, you're going to return money on your bet, and you can quantify it. And I've always said that, right? If all you guys out watching are looking for free picks and all that kind of stuff, and you go to other free pick pages and you do all that stuff, and you get all these free picks that come out there, why do you bet them? Do you know where they came up with the play? Do you know anything about what their expected evaluation is? What's the winning percentage? What's the return on investment look like? Any of that stuff? If you don't, then what are you doing, right? I don't want to sound crass, and I don't want to sound like I'm a know-it-all, but at the same time, I'm trying to teach you guys some things to look at, and I guess I'm scratching my head, right? Where I sit there and I go, a lot of people are just lazy, right? They want somebody else to do the work and tell them what to bet. You can do that. Sign up. It's $100. I'll tell you who to bet. Cost you $100. That's not much. Anyway, guys, I want to appreciate you for time. Appreciate you for coming on the channel today. We had some good interaction. Jason Berry at Fansided, I think, is the first time I've seen Jason come on, so I appreciate that. Matt, good to hear from you. Marty, good to talk to you again. Guys, I will be back on tomorrow. Tomorrow is a Saturday, so it'll be a noontime, 12:15 a show, whenever I can get the stuff done and get it on there. And then, like I always tell everybody, look, go to my website. It's mlb-data.com. You can become a sign up for the free newsletter. It doesn't cost you anything. You just put in your email address and sign up. And every time I write an article or post something, it'll come right to your email, so you can read that. If you want to be a client and you want to get all the information that I put out and stuff that I talk about, it costs you $100. I put in the plays that I make. If you want to follow them, you can. If you want to fade them, you can, whatever. But the whole purpose of the whole thing is to keep teaching people how to bet. and it costs you $100 for a whole year. It's $100. You just go to the website, mlb-daily.com. There's a little button up the top that says, hey, I want a membership sign up or something like that. You click the button and you do it. Worst case scenario, I shouldn't even say that, but it's not worst case. Guys, we want to grow the channel, right? Last week we were getting 200, 300 people. This week we're getting 85 to 100 people. It's okay. Stuff happens. Football's coming. We're going to talk football on this show too. So as we go, keep hitting the like buttons, keep hitting the retweet buttons. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, do all the different things that you have to do. But we need to get this thing pumping, right? We need to get a lot of viewers so that we can get some sponsorship coming in here. The sponsorship creates a much better presentation. You don't have to look at my hats in the background and all that stuff all the time. You'll get slideshows and other things. We get producers and all kinds of fun stuff. So anyway, let's have some fun. It's a Friday. We got new matchups today. Let's take advantage of those new matchups. Let's make some money today. And then I will see everyone on Saturday with another full slate of games. And I think there's like 9 football games too. So we'll talk about some football games. We'll hit some baseball games, a full slate of those. And then we'll go from there. So guys, I will catch up with you again tomorrow. And good luck tonight. Thanks a lot for your time.